When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to my review of Hustlers, which is a 2019 crime drama comedy film. Well, I say comedy, it's got some light-hearted moments throughout it. It's got quite a fun undertone, and to be honest, I wasn't expecting it to be this fun undertone. I thought it was going to be a bit more serious, a bit more downbeat. But no, it's actually quite fun. I thought there might be some comedic moments or some funny moments or upbeat, light-hearted moments, but it's actually quite an upbeat, light movie for the most parts. So, yeah, this is the 9th and final film I am watching in my multiplex contemporary popular cinema module at university, and it will be the final film I will be watching for any university course module. So how does this module's films that I have to watch and my classmates have to watch, and how do the films that I have been watching over these near 3 years at uni wrap up? How does Hustlers stand? Hustlers is a great film. This is a really great, entertaining film based on true events and a journal that was written up about those true events. We actually see the journalist writer in the film as well, but that's part of the story of the film, but more into that later on. The plot of Hustlers is as follows. A stripper called Destiny is taken under the wing of a stripper called Marone? I think I've got the name wrong. Basically, Constance Wu's character is taken under the wing of Jennifer Lopez's character. I think her character's called Ramon. If I get the name wrong, I might put it down below in editing, and you'll know who I mean when I say Ramon. I mean Jennifer Lopez's character, but she takes Constance Wu's character, Destiny, under her wing. We start off around 7 years before the article of what happened got published, and we see Destiny getting started and rising through the getting better as a stripper, and basically having a pretty great time. Yeah, it was a bit of a slow start, but she had a great time around 2007 to 2008 period. But then the Wall Street crash happened, and everything just kind of sucks for everybody. As the business that was coming into Destiny and company at their strip club was coming in mostly from Wall Street bankers who were paying large amount of money just for them just for the women to do kind of not necessarily sexual acts, but definitely dance for them and do sexual gestures. They're not prostitutes, but maybe for the right money they might do something sexual. But in the meantime, they've got more of the dance. Yeah, they could probably dance naked. That's also sexual, but they probably wouldn't do the actual sexual acts unless you paid them quite a lot more, I suppose. But that's not what we're worried about here. But basically, come the Wall Street crash, quite a lot of bankers have been stealing money, have been taking a lot of money from the innocent people, and it means a lot of low class and middle class people lost a bit of money or didn't get paid as much, and that included the strippers. So they have to go and find other work in places, or they get lower wages back at the strip club. And we see Destiny has had a child with a guy who initially started off as he's a pretty good guy, but then he became an asshole and he's off. Although those bits are kind of glossed over a little bit with Destiny's having a child born and with said child's father going off, it does feel that was done pretty quickly. We do kind of go through some things pretty quickly, as well, including some of Destiny's backstory. There was a bit actually when Romero, Jennifer Lopez's character, kind of mentions it, I think, at at the restaurant later on, and I thought, are we going to learn more? Are we going to learn more? And the answer is yes, but I thought we might learn more straight away. And whilst the movie doesn't do that, we do learn a little bit later on, but it isn't too focused on. The main focus is what's going on in the present. I say the present of what's happening in the time periods of 2007 to 8 and from 2009 to 13, as well as the reflections in 2014 and 15. So basically, come 2011, Romano and two other strippers have started up doing some sort of sneaky hustle where they will drug Wall Street people and get them into the club or to places, and they will do their routine and they will get paid quite a lot. So they basically bringing people in, not necessarily by force, but they're kind of they're drugging them and kind of sort of force, but not sort of. But the guys are coming willingly, so the guys pay the women for the usual stuff as per usual, except they're kind of bringing them in kind of naughtily. It's a little bit different this time. It's a little bit of a scam, a bit of a hustle, and the women are making a lot of money. They're getting a lot of money. Destiny gets involved, and there's soon a massive business, especially once they get a few more women in. These other women aren't as main focused as our four main characters. I can't remember the names of the other two, but they're pretty great supporting characters, and the actresses of all four are spectacular in the roles, and they're all really fun and great characters. My favourite character, however, is Destiny's grandmother. She's just so fun. She doesn't seem that way to begin with, but later on in the film, she proves to be such a fun character and so likeable. Spoiler alert, sadly, she does die, probably of old age. Inside, I felt at that moment, no, not the best character of the film. No! Again, they kill off the best character of the film. Though this is based on true events, as I mentioned earlier, or at least I should have mentioned earlier, and if not, I've just mentioned it. So, yeah, so I suppose it was a real-life event, and it took place. It's around that time things start going a bit wrong anyway, for the other characters, as there's this other girl called Dawn brought in, despite Destiny's concerns, because she's a drug addict and a criminal, and Destiny doesn't want drug addicts or criminals on board, even though they sort of are criminals, but they don't see themselves like that. But yeah, so this Dawn character, she's not very good at what she does. The others are great, but Dawn is pretty bad at what she has to do, and she keeps getting caught and getting into trouble for her other reasons, and she eventually sells them out later on. But it's also when Romano is dealing with Dawn is when the other three have a big issue when this one guy jumps off a roof, drugs, they have to get into hospital, and Destiny feels some stress and even gets into a bit of a tiffle with Romano. This doesn't last for too long, but later on, Dawn then sells them out after they steal money from a guy who's gone through quite a bit of a rough time, and now they've taken all of his money, so he can't provide for himself or for his son. And soon this starts leading to the police beginning an investigation into the women, and eventually a sting operation with Dawn being used as the one that they use in the thing. And eventually they bust the girls. And whilst Destiny does take a deal, the consequences are still kind of felt across the board. Later on, of course, we then have the article being written by the journalist, I suppose you could call her, and I believe it's Julia Stiles who plays the journalist. I knew I recognised her from somewhere. Julia Stiles, of course, was in the Bourne films, the second, third, and in a minor extent, fourth Bourne films, and she was really great in those. But yeah, the interviewer is a pretty good character as well in her own right. She has some great moments, and we even have a tiny little bit of her home life. So just to show she's also a human being, just like the characters we're following throughout the majority of the film. And that's what this film excels at. It's making us feel sorry for people who, if we hear about in the news generally, we probably wouldn't feel sorry about. Because they're people who have to lead their own lives. They've got to make their own lives and go their own way in the world, etc. Yeah, they kind of turn to kind of a criminal activity later on, but considering their targets are people who pretty much people in general don't really like anyway, for the most parts, then it could be argued it's a victimless crime. That was until this the last guy, when that guy did get screwed over quite a bit, and I kind of feel a bit sorry for that guy, because he lost everything and he has nothing to raise his son on. So yeah, he's kind of in a similar bubble to how the women were earlier, when some of them, Romano and Destiny, for example, have children, and there are points where they have very little to help raise their kids. So yeah, I feel sorry for people who are in situations like that, whether they're strippers or whether they're ex-bankers. Although other bankers, as we see throughout the movie, don't feel as sorry for much, and I'm more rooting for the girls to go through. It's that last guy that really I only really care about in terms of the bankers, because of his story that he had. And I suppose that is another thing this film does really well, is opening up the stories for people that you wouldn't really listen to the stories of. It's mainly focusing on the women, but you do get the odd story from somebody else. And I think that's when we learn different perspectives and stories about people, then it's better and clearer to understand what's going on with everybody. And it makes for some great history as well. And when the future comes around, we'll then look back on certain events in history and we'll look at them from more than one point of view. Whilst in the present, we may only get one or two point of views. And we've already had examples of that, of history going all the way back as far as possible, up to as current as like maybe I don't know, maybe 20 or so years ago. Some stuff that happened like a couple of decades ago are going to have more than one perspective in the present day. So we might get that. Even some of the more recent stuff gets more than one perspective now and again. So yeah, I like the idea of doing multiple perspectives. And this film, whilst it mostly focuses on the women, it does have the odd perspective of somebody else. Though, to be honest, the fact that the film is from this perspective in the women in the first place is already a good thing, as we get to learn of a perspective we may not have learned about in the papers or on the or in the news, perhaps. So, yeah, or maybe it's a story people just missed altogether because it's not a huge newsworthy story. It's not even that big of a crime, to be honest. What happened? It was embezzlement and theft, but in all honesty, I don't know how many people would actually feel sorry for the victims, besides that last one. Then they probably more in support of the women. So the strippers who committed these crimes, let's say crimes, they are crimes, but because we're rooting for them and we don't really care too much about the victims, bar the one at the very end, so-called crimes then. So yeah, I thought the movie did a really great job doing that, and I thought it did a really great job with the story. I don't really know too much about the real events as a whole, or the original article, but I think the way that the movie told it was really good and really well written. It did take a bit of time to get going, but I thought once we got going, once we got more into the characters, and once the story started to move into further points and started to go into the more troublesome times, that's when things got even more interesting. Not that to say that the earlier stuff was bad. In fact, the earlier stuff was really good. But I think the story got even better as we went along throughout the film. And I thought the character stuff and the drama was also really well handled throughout the film. The acting was pretty brilliant, especially our four main leads and also the journalist. And it was also really well directed, and it's a female writer and director on this movie, and I think I was glad of that, because I think for this type of film, a female voice and eye is key to capture this, especially if it's from a female point of view. It's about women. Not to say that a man couldn't do it, but I think for this type of story, a woman director and writer was strongly needed and pulled it off fantastically. And yeah, it works really well. There is some very strong male eye candy, as in eye candy for the men, although there is a little bit for the women as well. And that's heterosexual, by the way. If you're LGBT, there's a lot of eye candy for the women and a little bit for the men. depending on sexuality. In terms of the homosexuality, there's a lot of naked and semi-naked women throughout the film, especially earlier on. So that's going to appeal to them and to LGBT women. But you also get one or two men naked, which will be eye candy for the hetero women and the LGBT men. I should say men slash women and women slash men for the naked slash semi-naked women, because we also got bisexual in there and other sexualities. You know, it's just eye candy all around. Let's just say eye candy for everybody in some capacity. It's mostly eye candy of women for the audience, but you get the odd one for the man as well. Of the man, not for. You get quite a lot for four, but yeah, you know what I mean. So you get lots of eye candy for everybody. So yeah, and again, under a female director, it doesn't overdo it. With either of them, actually, it doesn't overdo the eye candy and the sexualness of the characters. It sticks to what it's needed for the context of the story and for the environment that the story is taking place, without having to go overboard. It's just enough. It's exactly right. On top of some great visuals, some great editing, even a little Wes Anderson-esque feel early on when we have the first 2014 set scenes. At least to me, it felt very Wes Anderson-y to begin with, but later on it just tied in and worked really well with the film. In fact, the 2014 and 15 stuff tied really well to the 2007 to 13 stuff. That tie-in and with the editing and how it flows with the story is really great and works really well. And I think it's a pretty great film. We've got a really great executed film, and it's really well told with some great acting and some great visuals. Not just the eye candy, but it also looks pretty great. It is definitely a spectacle film, as well as a hard-hitting drama with a bit of fun and a little bit of light comedy here and there. It's a fun film and enjoyable. I will be giving Hustlers. I was debating whether to give this an 8 or a 9. I don't think it's entirely perfect to go to a 10, but I certainly think it's strong enough for an 8 or a 9. And you know what? I've decided to settle with 9 out of 10.
I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Whoa, stand by me.
Yeah, this is a really great film. I'm not sure whether I put this above Lethal Weapon or not for the multiplex films, but even if this comes 7th on my multiplex contemporary popular cinema films ranking, which I will do probably next month when I've got a bit more time, even if this comes 7th, it's still still a pretty strong film. Or 6th or 7th, it's still pretty strong. So yeah, it's a really great film. Really enjoyed it. It was a bit of a slow start to begin with, and maybe it did feel a little bit uncomfortable with the establishing the location and the environment. Although it really shouldn't have. I really shouldn't have felt uncomfortable. That's probably more myself though, rather than the film. But yeah, as the movie progresses, we get more into the characters, and we get more into the less positive things that happens to said characters before going on to an all-time high and then down to an all-time low, etc. And when we're going up and down like on a seesaw, high point, low point, high point, low point, high point, low point, so on. It's really well balanced in telling that story, and it's really well executed in that. And as mentioned, we've got some great acting and directing, and it's a really well put together film. I don't think it achieves 10 out of 10, but it's certainly a close enough film. It's certainly enough to get that 9 out of 10. So I think Hustlers is a really great film, and I definitely recommend checking it out. So that's it from my review of Hustlers, and that's it from my multiplex contemporary popular cinemas films that I've had to watch for my university module course. And like I mentioned earlier, that's the last film I have to watch for a module that's on my university course. So that's it. That's it. 3 years, 5 courses. Well, 5 of the courses I had over the 3 years. But yeah, of the 5 courses where we watched films. Yeah, that's it. We're finished. We're done. No, I've still got the rank of this course's films. And like I said, when I got more time next month, I'll do that because I've got some other stuff to do, mostly for other university courses. But yeah, got a ranking of this, and I'll probably, if I can, rank every single film of the 5 courses I've seen in the module over the 3 years. Like I said, these aren't just the only 5 courses. These are the 5 courses I've seen films for. So the first one had about 7 I had to watch. The second and third had 8 each, and the fourth and fifth had 9 each. In total, there'll be about 41 films to rank. So I'll either do 4 videos covering 10 to 11 spots, or 6 or 7 videos covering 6 to 7 spots. We'll see. We might even be lucky and get a screening just before the end of the year for this course. We'll see. If we do, then I'll add it to the multiplex ranking. If it's one I haven't seen before, I might review it, or I might re-review it, and I'll add it to the big overall ranking as well. But in case there isn't, then this is it, and I'll see you for the multiplex contemporary popular cinema ranking in April, and I'll see you for whatever film or anything else that comes up next. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Stand by me whenever you're in trouble. Won't you stand by me? Whoa, stand by me. Whoa, stand now. Whoa, stand now. Stand by me.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. So how do we end both this course's films and the whole? So how do I? So how do I end? Basically, Constant Wu's character, I think her character's called Ramona. Yeah, and you'll know who I mean when I refer to the character. But basically, when I say, and she helps her become a bit better of a stripper. This happens in 2007, which is about 6 years or so before what happens and makes the and we see Constance getting started, and we see Destiny. There was a bit, however, I think when it was it's kind of a it's a no victims incident. Hang on. But yeah, basically, I'm not sure whether you could say that they're coming willingly or not. So with the guys at the, except that they're bringing them in, bringing, but yeah, that made me go inside. But inside, I felt no, not the favorite. To be honest, this is real life. So yeah, that it makes. Though to be honest, this is based on true events. So if this actually happened, which yeah, this is. Though to be fair, this is based. But yes. Anyway, later around that, but there is also a tiny little bit for well, they worked so yeah. On top of a pretty fun enjoy. In fact, the 2014-15 stuff fits in really well with the 2017 to with. Yep, I'm debating whether this one's the weakest of the 7, 9 or 10 out of it. But it's definitely. I don't think it's entirely perfect. I don't think it's 10 out of 10. So I think Hustlers did a, and as I mentioned earlier, the final film I have to watch for any university module on my course. And like I mentioned earlier, that's the last film I have to watch for a module of. So 2 8s is 16, 2 9s is 18, 16, that's about 34 plus 7. It's about 30. in a big ranking. So I'll probably do a 4-parter, or an 8-parter, depending on how many I do. If either 4, 11 to 10 parts, either 4, 10 to 11 part ones, or 6. Yes, or 6 or 7, 6 to 7 ones, or 6 to 7 part, 6 or 7 rankings. No, and if we do, then I'll add that to the overall ranking and to the giant multi-part ranking for all of the years as well.